What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the All in One podcast. It's Jordan,
Kari here.
Julavon here.
and today we have a very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Coach Jim Glatch. How are you doing today,
Yeah.
Coach?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm doing good, gang. Good to be back on the campus of Edinburgh University. I know you guys are all calling it Penn West now, but it'll always be Edinburgh University to me.
As it should be.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
hate
sir.
that new name.
Yeah, he's
I don't
a-
like it all. I saw the sign coming in. I'm like, what the is that? Even
mean-
Sandy was upset about that stuff.
I kind of like the sign though. It's very it's very
the new
nice.
sign is kind of cool.
It's
I like-
cool.
I like
Like
the
it
color.
glows. It glows at night. It's like LED
do?
lights. It's pretty nice. Yeah.
Oh, it glows?
It glows?
Yeah.
All
it
right.
does.
I know
LED
that.
lights at the night at nighttime. But
I just don't like that we got to share like the our name
Yeah,
with two other
we got three schools.
campuses.
Yeah.
Clarion, that's like
Clarion.
our enemies. Our nemesis
Well,
or
and I
some
know
shit.
back in the day, basketball, women's basketball and softball, man, Cal was tough, and our ladies would go down there and they'd have to put a hurt on them once in a while. So that was always a big rivalry.
but yeah. So like, how you been, Coach? It's been a minute since we've seen you.
Yeah, everything's good. It's an adjustment in life, going from driving to the borough every day and, being in the gym and just being around a lot of young people who are looking forward to moving forward in life. And now, living, and working in the same community for the most part, it's in some ways it's pretty nice, and in some ways, like when I left last year, it was pretty hard. So overall, everything's good. I do admit I like the drive a lot better now. I got a mile to my office, and I walk it sometimes. So
Oh wow.
Yeah, we take that drive. We took that drive to go to your house for the cookout one time. Like that drive is very grueling. I don't know how you did that for all that time.
Yeah.
the worst part was sometime in January or February, and we're getting
yeah.
10 inches
Yeah.
of snow, and it's funny. So there's the highway, and then there's the back roads. I'd always take the back roads because not as many people would be out there, and in the mornings they would plow them for the school buses. So I spent a lot of time on 99 and 6 and stuff, just getting up here.
Yeah, the I love the back roads. That drive is very nice, though. I have
It
to
is.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
At nighttime.
Or at nighttime too. Yep, definitely, 100%. But yes, sir. So like, how you feel about the Steelers doing this? What the Steelers doing this?
You
week,
know,
Coach?
it's funny. They're 3-1, but they don't look like a 3-1 team. I've watched all the games, and I don't know. The thing you count on with the Steelers is their defense, and they're letting me down a little bit. I
Yeah,
know Ramsey's
defensively-
hurt and Joey was hurt, but come on, man, they're giving up 30 points a game.
Yeah.
Defensively, they haven't been like the Steelers that everybody knows them as.
Yeah.
Nah, not at
It's
all.
bad.
No. So and now we got the Browns, and the Browns are 1-3, but they don't have a quarterback. They've
Yeah.
gone through two, and they've traded away two, and but their defense, I don't like to give the Browns props, but they got a
Defense
great
is nice.
The defense
defense.
is nice.
So it's
Miles Garrett, David Ward.
yeah, it's going to be a rough game this weekend. But for a guy who did not like Aaron Rodgers, he's doing okay for 41 years old, and he's keeping us on a winning track. I mean, he just finds ways to win the games, and okay, we can live with that, and. I think most of Steeler Nation are starting to embrace the fact that he's our quarterback, at least for this year. So
This year.
Y'all might win the division this year. The Ravens
might.
not looking good
The
at
Ravens
all.
not looking good at all.
And Joe Burrow hurt.
And they can tell. They all,
it's almost the perfect storm for the team, because you're right. Those two quarterbacks in Baltimore and Cincinnati, you got an MVP almost annually in Jamar and Lamar, and with Burrow, I'm waiting for that kid to have that year, but he's hurt. This is like
Always.
the second, third time
Always.
he's been hurt. So that their the Baltimore defense, they're like Pittsburgh. It's usually a really good defense, and unfortunately they're beat up too. So that's the part that scares me is we see Baltimore, I think, twice at the end of the year. They'll be healthy then. That's when they'll beat up on us. It won't matter, but they'll beat up on us. So
did they play the Lions this year?
Steelers do play the Lions like later on.
Yeah.
yeah, that's going to be. If the defense doesn't get any better, that could be ugly.
our
The Lions
offense-
look good.
Our offense is nasty.
Yeah,
Yeah, that Lions team is, a good friend of mine's a huge Lions fan, so we're hearing about it already. It's cool.
It's cool. Well, Coach, what was your history playing sports growing up?
Well, I mean, back in the day, it was simple in that you either played baseball, football, basketball. It was those were the sports really that were big in school. I went to Butler High School, south of here, and it's large. I mean, I graduated with almost 1,000 kids in my class,
Wow.
but we didn't really have the number of sports that a large high school like that would have today. So we had tennis, and we didn't have volleyball. We had hockey as a club sport. Me and my friends would get together on the pond and play some hockey and just goof around, but we didn't know what we were doing. Baseball was. I loved football. I got hurt playing football. I got hurt pretty bad playing football. I had to stop playing after my junior year. They almost made me stop playing all sports.
What position
Yeah,
was
what
it?
position?
In football, I was a tailback and I was a corner on defense.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I loved hitting
Wow.
people, but it was a tailback where I got hurt. I was pretty fast, but when a linebacker's twice your size and he matches up, that you don't win that battle if you get caught. So I didn't win the battle, and that was pretty much the end of my football career. But I love all sports. Basketball in high school, we had a coach who kept 15 guys, and then he kept another 8 for JV, so he'd have his bench playing. When you've got 1,000 kids in your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade class, it's 4,000 kids. You got like basically 20-some spots. So making our high school and the worst part of it, we were not that good. We had an intramural basketball league that was so much fun in high school. There was a kid that got cut from the high school basketball team. He was 6'7". We didn't have everybody on our high school team above 6'3", and this kid could play some ball. So the first thing I did was went out and recruited him. I said, "Hey, look, Tim," I said, I need some size for our intramural squad. Let's go." He's like, "Man, I don't know. I'm kind of bummed about not making it." I said, "No, man, we're going to win this intramural thing." So that's what we went out and did. And, I just kept playing. I played baseball in college for a couple of years. Again, injuries. This time, the first in high school was concussions. I had a series of concussions. In college, I had 2 knee surgeries before my junior year. But between my freshman and sophomore year, probably the biggest highlight of my playing career was I got to try out for the Pirates in their old stadium, and so that was a lot of fun. I thought I did pretty well, but there's 80 guys there, and but it was just fun to say, hey, you know what, I tried out for the Pirates, and it was the year after they won their last World Series, so that tells you how long ago that was.
What position did you play?
I was I tried out that day at first base, but I played a lot of outfield and third base. In college, I played more outfield. Again, I know you guys are looking at me going, "This is hard to believe," but I was pretty fast back in the day, But knee injuries will take that away from you a little bit. I had a decent arm. I have a great arm. I had a good bat. My job was to get on base, steal bases.
Right.
So I could track any ball down. But now. My grandson and I, he's 4 years old, and he throws me a ball. I hope it doesn't go past me, right? So,
That's cool. I didn't know you tried out for the Pirates. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is
interesting.
yeah. That was part of the fun times in life.
Yeah.
So, what you saying are the sports that you played back in the day in your college and high school days. How did you end up being a wheelchair basketball coach?
It was accidental, really. I mean, I moved after I graduated college. I worked close to home for a couple months, and I got a job up in Meadville at the hospital in their mental health unit. And I also took a part-time job in a group home, in an ID group home. So the one night they were telling me, "Hey, we're gonna go to Special Olympic practice." Okay. I said, "You need help?" "Yeah, we need someone that knows how to coach." And I walk into the gym, and you all played for me, so you know how this is about to go. I see about 40 kids running around with basketballs all over the place, and I got a whistle, and I blow the whistle, and and right away just kind of broke everybody up into skill groups and said, "Okay, here we got this, and this is my first practice." And but prior to that, I had always coached like either my intramural sports teams, or I'd coached some little league in the summertime and stuff. So I was already coaching by the time I was 22, 23 years old. And so I loved coaching. I knew I loved coaching. So this, the whole Special Olympic thing was pretty cool. And then about 5 years into it, the last year I was there, I was coaching basketball and volleyball, and I was getting the softball program started. and they asked me to run the county as a volunteer manager. So I spent 20 hours a week running them, which would kind of help to what I'm doing today.
Okay.
And so I was in charge of 10 people, all volunteers for money, fundraising, sports, training, administrative stuff, and the state staff came in and saw me and said, "Hey, now I continue to coach like my rec softball teams and stuff." 6 years into that, and I had several jobs while I was there. One was the administrative side. A lot of it was sports events, major events. We run 1,000-person sporting events, and I would be in charge of those. And then I took over as head of training and basically an athletic director for 26,000 Special Olympic athletes statewide, and all the coaches. And a lot of my job was to teach coaches how to coach adapted sports.
Okay.
And so I'm doing this, and I'm listen, not everybody's made to coach. And some people, they want to coach because their kid's playing it, or because they're a teacher at a school and they're like, "Hey, I can do this because whatever," and they can't. They're really not that good at it. But hey, that was my job, to teach them or to teach the teachers. And the job at Edinburgh opened up, and it was adaptive sports. I'm like, I'm getting tired of teaching other people how to coach adaptive sports. I want to get back into just coaching. And so that's kind of how that all evolved. I applied for the job, and Sean Reagan called me up, who used to be in charge of campus rec, and said, "Will you come in and interview?" I said, "Absolutely." And the rest is history.
Oh wow. How was that first year for you? Like,
Rough. I am not going to lie. It was rough because I don't like to lose. And so when I took over, it was called the Rolling Scots, and there was wheelchair basketball, there was powerlifting, there was table tennis, and there was air rifle. We added archery. We had some road racers still around. So I had to coach all those sports, but one of the things that we noticed was there was not a recreational component to it. Dr. Fleschauer, who was then the acting Dean of Students and also Vice President of Student Affairs, or of the Provost, he said, "Jim, we want a recreational component, so I want you to develop that as well." And so the AIRS program developed from that, and we had like intramural football and intramural basketball, where we incorporated ABs long before the NWBA decided to do the whole AB thing. We had about 6 in each of those sports. We had some intramural rugby. We started bringing in people to do like dance, chair karate. It was really cool.
Oh, wow.
We did all this stuff back in the day, and I finally said, "Hey, listen, I'm never home." I said, "This is getting back to my Special Olympic days when I'm working 100 hours." I said, "I need at least a grad assistant," and so they gave me that. And so, but that first year, we took our team out on the road, and we didn't play in a college division. It was the last year we didn't play in a college division, so that was 95, 96. And I go to my first Keystone Conference meeting. It was an adult division we were in. And I'm sitting there, and we're talking, and the head of the conference was a guy named John Sikora. Great guy, mentor, one of my mentors in this game. And he looks at the whole group, and he says, "Hey, all the coaches there from all these teams," and he goes, "When do we want to have the tournament, the conference tournament? Do we want to have it beginning of the season or the end of the season?" And I'm looking around this room, and they're all kind of, I said, "Well, I'd like to have it at the end of the season." I said, "I want to get to know my team and, develop them, and, that way we're ready at the end of the season." And they all started laughing. No, I didn't find any humor in this at that point. And I said, "What's so funny?" They said, "Well, you guys have won one game in 10 years. And I said, "No, really." They said, "No, really, you've won one game in 10 years. And so that was the hand I was dealt. So we didn't win a game our first 2 years here, and I was chirping in everybody's ear, but I wasn't allowed to recruit. I wasn't allowed to raise funds for scholarship. I wasn't allowed to do any of that. And in the second year is when we joined the college division, and it was a nightmare. But that first year we went 0-16, and the second year we went 0-23, and I was
gosh.
Yeah.
I was like, "Nah, I can't do. We're gonna go out and recruit." So I went to the president of the university and said, "Hey, you gotta let me go out and recruit." So that's how that started.
So like you mentioned that you wanted to branch out into adaptive athletics to coaching. So like, was there any other specific reason why you decided to come to coach at Edinburgh, or was it just like a place that offered you the job?
Well, you know what? Edinburgh's close to where I live.
Yeah.
And back then they had an incredible, not only history, but your reputation for having a program not just for athletics, but for students in general with disabilities. You know, about 10% of their population was some form of disability. I think it's still pretty high, but back then it was more individuals in wheelchairs. And so it was well known. It was ranked in the top 5 in a lot of different categories as a university to go to if you were in a wheelchair. Like I said, I was already in adaptive sports, and I had been coaching all sports since before I graduated college.
Yeah.
So it just kind of was like a natural development that I moved forward into this realm, and I don't regret it. Now, learning how to coach it was probably more fun, and you guys all had a blast with this part of it. So my first year, it's I get hired at the end of May. I see there's a camp at Ball State. Back then, PVA and NWBA merged together to have some big-time camps. So I went to Sean, my boss. I say, listen, I'm going to put together a chair. I'm working with wheelchair. We had a wheelchair repairman back then.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That must
Back
be
in
nice.
the day, we had a wheelchair repairman.
Where's that now?
Yeah.
Right?
We need
And
that.
Jerry was the best. I mean, Jerry taught me how to build chairs, fix chairs. I mean, he showed me how to make sure they were balanced so that the
Yeah.
wheels were all touching. And so we put together a chair. And when I say it wouldn't even be a good, like a everyday chair, I'm not lying. So I show up. There's hardly any camber. I've got these long bolts and there was some washers, and I go out to Ball State, and there's 100 guys there.
Oh wow.
And it's 90-some degrees, and this gym has no air conditioning. They got 5 courts going. So from a basketball perspective, it was off the charts. It was awesome. But I had already made the decision to spend the whole time. When I got out of the car, I was in the chair.
Yeah.
I didn't get back, out of the chair except to go to bed and shower. But when I ate, when I went back and forth from my dorm room to the gym, it was in the chair, so that I could develop a better understanding of how to use the chair, but also to have a better understanding of what my players were going to go through that I was dealing with, and so that was important to me.
That's nice.
Yeah, so that was where I started, and I mean, some of the guys that were coaching out there, Trooper Johnson's out there, man, he's harassing me. Mark Shepard's out there, Ron Likens is out there. So, quick story about me and Ron, how we first met. Todd Hatfield and Ron Likens are running a court upstairs. On my team is Justin South, kid who played at Whitewater, he lives in Rockford, played for Rockford for years. Tommy Schrader, who played here for a little bit, they were like 17, 18 years old, and then some older players. Well, Ron hasn't seen me out of the chair yet. Now, Todd did. So they're going over this pick drill. I come, and my banana cut wasn't real good. I would have been yelled at you guys for this, but my banana cut came into a T-bone, and I flipped backwards. Well, back then, there was no there was no 5th or 6th wheel. So I went, bam. And all of a sudden, Ron blows the whistle, he stops, he's leaning over me, and he's looking, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I just jumped out of the chair, and his eyes was like he saw something crazy. I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just hit my back. We're good. Let's go."
That's funny.
Yeah, so I give Likens a hard time about that every so often when I see him.
That's cool. That's an interesting way to start like such a good relationship, because I know you guys are really close with each other.
Yeah. You know what? Ron and I over the years have had some good battles on the court, even off the court a little bit, just because we're a lot alike, I think, and that's part of the problem. I think in some ways Ron's a little more disciplined in certain areas. I think in other areas I'm a little more disciplined than he is, and but we're both very passionate about the game. We're both very vocal about the game. We respect the history of the game. We want to see, young people have an incredible opportunity to grow, not just as players, but as people and as individuals. You look at how many national titles he's won. He's not won any. But you look at how many gold medals he's won as a head coach of USA, and he's got 4, 2 with the women and 2 with the men. When he started doing that, he was at Whitewater.
Really? Oh wow.
And they were horrible. and you know Whitewater is now a powerhouse. Well, he started. He doesn't get credit for this, but he's kind of the guy who built some of that. And you know when you leave and you have a good team, if they do really well, you're not the person who gets credit for it.
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about USA down the road. That's exactly
we're gonna get there.
So
Yeah, like I also find it was very cool how like your last home game was coaching against Ron. I like how that worked out. That was a very nice moment.
yeah, you know that was obviously a bittersweet day for me. Loved what I did here. Loved you guys and all the guys I coached before you. But having the opportunity to coach against Ron and beat him, that was special. You know, because what you're looking at there is 3 men's medals right there. You know, you're looking at guys who cared about the game for their entire careers, and I don't see Ron doing anything else. I mean, him and I had joked around that day about what happens when we retire. Should we go over to Europe and coach for a couple of years just to have some fun and keep the rivalry going or something? And but they don't really pay too well over there, so I don't see them just leave.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So like, I'm kind of curious about this. Like, what was your process of like recruiting players? Like, how did that go?
When we were finally allowed to go do it, the first junior tournament I ever went to. Well, let me take it a step back. When I was told I was allowed to recruit, the first thing I did was we played Buffalo in the Keystone tournament, and they had 2 young guys. Actually, they had 3, but 2 that were serious about playing the game. One was Joe Gironi, and the other one we called him the big dog for years, Nate Dove. When I would take you guys into that recruiting room, the guy who's shooting that long, that's Nate Dove.
Okay.
And so I was trying to get both of those guys there. And in that same year, I went down to Charlotte, North Carolina, where Junior Nationals was. It was my first junior national tournament to attend. And, I'm watching the game, and Mike Frogley was just leaving Whitewater to go to Illinois. And so we're sitting there talking, and I said, Mike, I don't know, what everybody has. I said, you guys, I know Illinois is always good. And, he invited me up to Canadian Nationals that year, but I think he did that just to rub something in my face. So I'm watching team out of Michigan play. Now what would be known as the Grand Rapids team, junior team. And they had this guy, man, was he fast, and he could shoot, and he was all over the place. And I'm like, I want him. And Frogley's laughing. He goes, no, man, that's Paul Schulte. He's got a full ride to UTA. And I looked at him. I said, what do you mean he's got a full ride? He said, oh, Jim Hayes is handing out full rides down at UTA. And I said, I don't got 5 cents, and he's giving full rides. How am I supposed to recruit with this? So then I go over, and I'm watching this Arkansas team, and they got this big guy, and he's a single leg amp, and I said, the Frog, and I start to point him. He goes, nah, he's going to UTA with them. And those 2 would be roommates their freshman and sophomore year. There was a good education, but what I made a point to do is go around and just introduce myself to all the coaches, the players. I kind of stayed away from Wisconsin even then because Opie was there. He was in juniors back then, and Opie and I were talking. He's like, Whitewater's in my backyard. A lot of these guys are going to go to Wisconsin. And Opie was, straightforward right from day one with me about that stuff. He never him-hawed around. He's like, man. But they also had, there was a kid from Indiana. There was a couple kids from Indiana. One was Jose Leap, and we'd have to wait some years for him. And then when I went over and talked to New Jersey, and there was a young man named Jason Salawu. We'd end up calling him Kobe because he looked like Kobe, and he thought he could shoot like Kobe. And, it was... and so Kobe was our first junior recruit, and Joey Gironi came in that first recruiting year. So those were our first 2 actual recruits to come. So Joe's got a lot of history with his team. I know you guys all know Joe really well. Yeah. But Kobe, man, he didn't disappoint. For a freshman, he came in there, and one of the things I had explained to him was, hey, you can't just shoot every time you touch the basketball. And like any freshman, we're working to get him to develop the chair skills to play both ends and to understand the 2-man game. But he would get pretty frustrated when you're losing by 15 or 20 points. And next thing you know, I'm watching threes go up, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? No. But 5 years of coaching Kobe was a lot of fun, and so it was always, we don't know you, we don't know Edinboro, and we don't have any money, and that was a big part of the process. There's some scholarship money out there for Texas, so that was hard to coach against. I'm not going to name names, but two of the schools did things in a way that I would not ever promote. One would move the kids in-state for a year, have them practice with the team, and not attend any classes. And then they would get in-state the next year, which was like a third of what it cost to go to Edinboro. Another one would bring them into a junior college, and they would practice with the team, but they'd go to the junior college, which was half the price, get in-state residency.
Oh, wow.
And so, you're competing against really 3 schools every year that are doing this kind of thing. And so we really had to work hard to build up. Us in Southwest really had our uphill battles. Oklahoma State had an uphill battle. Wright State was in it for a while. Temple was around for a little bit. And they all had their uphill battles, and a lot of it had to do with money.
Yeah.
A lot of it had to do with facilities. Where you practicing? We were practicing here. We were practicing. So we were practicing in the UC. It was, so recruiting to the campus was what I had to learn how to do to get kids here.
Okay.
Yeah, like the recruiting thing is like, that's like really crazy. Like, I really commend you for all the stuff that you've done trying to get all the people here the way you did.
Even those 3.
Yes, sir.
I know it's hard because you're dealing with like high schoolers. You got to convince their parents as well.
Definitely parents.
So
sometimes you got to convince the kid.
Yeah, convince the kid, and then the parent wants to know everything too, probably.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna tell you, to be honest, most of the time I'm recruiting the parents.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm recruiting the parent.
That's what you gotta do. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So like, well, I'm kind of curious. What was like the process for you to recruit us 3 here sitting at this table right now?
Well, so the one next to me here, he was the hardest actually. He didn't want to come here. He was like, man, and I know he was headed somewhere else, and I'm like, fine, go. Because I'm at that point in my career. I'm like, you know what? I know where you're going. I know what's about to happen. I'll be patient and wait. With you, I have known you since you were really young.
Yeah.
And so recruiting you was more about just convincing you that this was an opportunity for you that wasn't going to cost you as much.
Yeah.
Because I know Arizona was on the mind, and I also know your mom and dad did not want you in Arizona. So that's where it comes back. But, I got to know you and your family pretty well from being down in Philly and having you up at all these camps. So with you, a lot of it was familiarity. So it was with Julavon, because I'd watched Julavon. Kari was the wild card. Kari, we went over to Fort Wayne, and I hadn't really seen him play. And Cork and I are over there, and we're going, all right, kid's athletic. He looks like he might be okay. And so I go up, and he's like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Well, where else are you gonna go? I don't know. I might just stay home. No, I want to stay home. Yeah, he was a hard one to get in, but and so it's true with every kid. I mean, a lot of it. Like if you look at this team that's here right now, and all but one I recruited. There's, with most of you guys, there was a history, a long history. With the kids from Philly, the kids from Bennett, the kids from Michigan. I used to go to Michigan and do camps every year.
Yeah. Kids
from Michigan, Bennett used to bring all their kids up here. Philly, I would always have and so there was a familiarity, and that was really my recruiting area. Was okay, I'm going to go after, because at that point in time, there's no college in the East except for Edinboro. Now, CUNY comes about right when you guys are starting to come in. Michigan hadn't started their program, which blew everybody away for years, because you think about Michigan having a college basketball team back when I first started recruiting, and you're going to get Paul Schulte, Jason Nelms, Mikey Pay, Denny Muha, Chris Comer, Joe Besna. The list was huge.
DJ Murray.
DJ would have been there. Jesus would have been there. I'm like,
Are you
what are
good?
they waiting for now? And I'm not saying the talent's dried up there, but I don't think you could rattle off 10 names like that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You know, so that was. I mean, and I think like with Zay, Elijah, Jeffrey. I don't know how many times was in Cleveland. You know, so that, as recruiting as I got older, I realized here's your pockets. You know, go to those pockets, recruit heavily in those pockets, and bring those guys here because they've got other friends. They're going to be here, and that was a big. Think about it, that's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
You know, you want to play with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
100%.
that was the biggest choice why I picked here over
the other place.
The other place.
Yeah, we want
Yeah.
to talk about the other place.
Yeah, so like, out of all the recruiting classes that you've had, what was like your favorite one that you recruited? What was like the most fun you've had coaching? Which team?
Wow, that's hard because I've had a lot of fun with a lot of my teams. I'm not gonna lie. There was there are I don't know there's any one recruiting class that I would say was better than any other because through the course of time, each one develops differently. As for teams, I mean it's real easy to look back at our 06-07 team.
Mm-hmm.
We finished 27-5, which at that time was a school record for wins for a basketball team. We finished second in the nation,
Oh wow.
losing in the national championship game to Wisconsin Whitewater here in Edinburgh. And it was an 8-man squad, and of that squad, 2 are currently in the Hall of Fame. But our first 5 were Jose Leap, who's a 4-time All-American, Mike Looney, who in his sophomore year scored 555 points,
Oh,
still
wow.
a team record. Bryce Duty, who was just Mr. Do Everything. Tommy Gray, who don't get in his way because he don't care how big you are, he's going to run you over. And then we had got a transfer from Southwest, Class 1-5, Jason Matthews, who was just tough as nails. And he had been a primary scorer there, and I told him when he got here he was going to be in the dive and do all the picking, you know. But our bench was 3 freshmen. Andrew Grossman, great 3-ball shooter. Bobby Krantz out of New York, who was back when he first got here, he was really good. He was solid. He played on a national championship team in juniors with Steve Serio and with Chris St. Remy.
Okay.
So that's how old St. Remy is.
Yeah.
And then the last kid was, at that time, he was 8 out of 8. And his name's Trayvon Jennifer. And I harassed Trey to this day about his freshman year. But he grew as the season went. Well, his game grew. He didn't grow. He was still about $105, 105 pounds
Oh, wow.
at the end of his freshman year. And it was also Joe Chambers' freshman year. And Joe was the difference in that national championship game because the year before we were beating up on Whitewater.
Yeah.
And we had a bad national tournament in Illinois the year before. That was the year we lost to Texas Arlington, who had Mikey Pay, Jay Nelms, Aaron Googe. I mean, they had all these kids, and we lost by 4.
Oh.
If we beat them, we're playing Whitewater in the national title game, and we were so confident. And Whitewater they weren't bad. We were just that good,
Right.
you know. But when they picked up Joe, that team that Whitewater had in 06-07 was stacked. When I say stacked, they only had one guy on that team, and it was like 12, 13-guy roster that had no affiliation with their national team because they had a guy from Israel on the national team, a guy from Germany on the national team,
wow.
and then you had Ice Pick, Les Brantz at 1, you had Jeremy Campbell, you had Nate Hines, Joe Chambers, Matt Scott. Oh, it was a sweet team. I mean, I'm looking down at Tracy thinking, man, this is an all-star team. What are you doing down there? I know what he was doing. He's like, I'm not losing to you, and I'm not losing to Frogley. End of story. Trace was a great coach. He's a women's assistant now. But, yeah, no, that was a great team. But, you know, I'm not going to lie. There's other teams, and they're just as great in my mind that were fun to coach. The teams that had Nate Dove and Adam Benchik and Markey and Cork and Joe and we had some guys, Jason Shuffstow and Tiffany Fry played on that team. Kobe, we mixed guys in and out of those lineups. We had a guy named Chris Cowell. He's coaching the Bennett team now. He came in during that period, and those guys were just so much fun to coach because all they want to do is learn and get better. and they were a part of the group of guys that got us from 0 wins to 20 wins every year. And so that's fun.
Yeah.
The group that was with Will, Will, Kevin, Mikey Adams was there. He'd come back after not being in school for 10 years, and he decided to come back and get his degree. Timing couldn't have been any better. Chase Wolf's on that team. Seamus is on that team. Alex Salah's on that team. We finished 5th in the nation 3 years in a row. We just missed out twice from going to the national semifinals. But the thing that team had reminded me of a lot of the 06-07 team, and that they were tough. And they knew that the focus was on defense, but they were fun on the bus too, and you could have a good time. And then there was you guys. We came back from COVID, and we didn't really have a team left.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Andy Garbarino, who just went in the Hall of Fame for us, he called me up about, I don't know, 2 months, a month and a half before the start of school, and I'm like, I don't know what we're doing with this COVID stuff. And he said, I got this guy, Jeremy. He said, I think he could be okay. All right, let's talk. And Jeremy was a lot like you, Kari. I don't know, man. I'm finishing up my bachelor's. I don't know if I'm like, whoa, dude, what do you? He said, come down here and get your MBA, But then, we started bringing slow but sure, the kids out of Cleveland, kids out of Michigan, you, some
Just
Bennett.
me.
Well, you were the only one who came from
Yeah,
Floyd to me, and then, but we also started getting some kids from Bennett. And it was really funny because prior to leaving, my goal was to coach 5 more years here, get through this last year's freshman class, and then retire because I would have been about 67 years old then. And I thought that's a good way to go. I like this group of guys. I've known most of you most of your lives, and so I thought, I got this great group of guys. We're going to have a lot of fun. We did have a lot of fun, and so I think I don't know that there's any one team as far as they were my favorite team. I loved all my teams. I loved coaching all my players. There are pockets though that made an impact on where the program is and an impact on me personally, and those 3 areas, and we really only had like bad years where I wanted to pull my hair out a few times.
Right.
Just a few.
I want to bring up another team, that 2012 USA team that you coached.
Yeah, it was.
How was that?
It was fun. When I brought in Kobe and we were headed into the 2000s, I was starting to get some recognition for. Instead of being just a guy on the sidelines at these camps, as being one of the clinicians, and the next thing you know, I'm getting invited to help out at selection camps. And Tracy Chenoweth, who had been the coach at Whitewater, I got named the U23 coach in 2001. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, I think it'd be great to have you on the sideline." And so that was how I all got started. We fast forward to 2009, and I get after the 2007 run, NWBA kind of came up to me and said, "You need to put your hat in for the 2009 U23 job." And at that point, we were still not talking men's national team; we're talking just U23s. And I said, "Yeah," and they said they knew back then I really hated flying, and I'm not. I'll fly now, but it's not on my top 10 things to do. But yeah, it was. So I said, "Yeah, we'll get over that." So we went to Paris, and we got this team ready. We went to a tournament in Manchester, England, against all adult teams, and did really well there. We had a couple training camps, and then we went to Paris for the U23 World Championships, and it was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. While that was happening, the senior coaching staff was being evaluated, and they put the application in there, and the national office was like, "You need to put your name in the hat." Right? And so I did, and they interviewed right before I went to Paris, and they told me when I got back that I got the job. The thing about the 2009 to 2012 run we made is we had a medal at every event, and that was the first team that could say that in 12 years. The 97 to 2000 group was the last medal, the group that could say they had 4 consecutive medals as a team. But then from 2001 until 2008, they couldn't get a medal at the Paralympics. So they finished 7th at one and 4th at another, and they knew I would change some things up. One of the things that Will Waller always said to me after it was all over is he's like, you confuse the guys sometimes because you made things, you did things differently. And I said, I did things differently because we had to change the way things were happening. We got going into 12. Obviously, the goal is a gold medal. NWBA changes executive directors. They kind of did some stuff behind the scenes that I wasn't really happy about. I was a little vocal about it. They brought in a high performance director, someone that I had respected. And honestly, the guy's a Hall of Famer, and he still knows the game very well. And but he had already had it. And he told me before I went to London that even if you win a gold medal, there's no guarantees you're going to be the coach moving forward. So that going over that, and he used a name, and it was Ron Likens. He said, look at Ron, he didn't get the coach. And I'm like, okay, so I already know no matter what I do in London, I'm not getting the job again, and I already know who's replacing me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would have thought that would have given me hard feelings towards Ron, but I never got mad at Ron about it. Ron just applied for a job. Ron got the job. Ron was a great coach. He got 2 gold medals. Awesome. What I got mad about was how it was handled. Going into London, we felt like we had a pretty good team. With a lot of people, I'm not going to tell you who was hurt during certain games, but we lost a couple games in there. And it was always those games where we had injuries going in. Now, those aren't excuses because we had so much talent. But the ride to get there and the season that we had was just unbelievable. When you coach those guys at a high level, one of the things when you're coaching college basketball is you look at the guys, you're trying to teach them the game. When you're coaching a national team, if you've picked the right players, you show them how to do something at one time.
They already know it.
And then they do
it's
it.
muscle memory.
Yeah. Paul Schulte wanted to be so good at the system. He would stay in my room till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, making sure we were on the same page.
Oh wow!
And so it was a lot of fun. The last game, we're playing for the bronze medal. We're playing in London. We're playing Great Britain. This is their home crowd. It's I share a birthday with Steve Serio. So there's 17,000 people, most of them cheering for GB. But before the game starts, they got other things going on. And they say, hey, we want to sing happy birthday to USA national team player Steve Serio and the head coach Jim Glatch. And so they all 17,000 people wish us happy birthday that day. And then the next thing you know, they get ready to announce the teams, and as they announce our names, they start booing us. I'm like, hey. I could hardly hear anybody in that game, and they could hear me because of my big mouth.
Yeah.
And it was basically when we called a timeout or there was a timeout, I am screaming at the top of my voice to get instruction, but we were not going to lose that game. It was probably the biggest thrill as a coach of my life. I really did not know how to react after that game. I was like, holy smokes, we just won a medal. First time in 12 years. And I'm standing here in front of 17,000 people who hate me right now. And all I want to do is just jump up and down. So it was incredible. It was an experience of a lifetime, and if anybody ever asked me to do it again, I'd say, heartbeat. It was just that fun.
It was beautiful. All right. As we wrap up, I just want to ask you, what is one piece of advice you could give someone who is just starting to coach or play wheelchair basketball?
You know what? Just be yourself. One of the things I think too many people go out and try to do is try to be someone else. They try to be this person, that person. They want to emulate this person, that person. I think you got to be yourself. And I think the second part of that is you got to always put extra work in. If you're the greatest player in the world, someone else is going to try to catch you. So you got to continue to work hard to be great. We always, I give Trey a hard time. I give Jose a hard time. But I'm going to tell you what, in the 29 years I coached, I can't think of 2 young men that worked their tails off in the off season and during the season as hard as they do and did. You guys I know put the work in every day, but that's the difference. Trey saw Jose. He said, I want to catch Jose. We went down to Mexico in 2011. We're playing Colombia for the gold medal for the parapans, and Jose leaps on Colombia, and Trey had caught and passed Jose, and it's because Trey kept putting the work in. Andy Garbarino was the same way. Andy is a class 1. He's a class 1 man. What do you do with the class 1? Well, he got his freshman year. He kept getting pushed backwards. I cut him from U23s. I cut him. So he decided, I'm going to put the extra work in. But they never changed who they were. You know, their energy, their attitude, you know, how they treated other people. And that's the biggest thing, I think, for any sport. It doesn't have to be wheelchair basketball or coaching. I have a friend who loves a certain coach, and he's like, man, you know, you need to be more like that. I'm like, nah, I need to be more like me. And that's, I think, the one thing I can always say is true. I think the last piece of advice, and this came from our USA team, Mel Jewett, who's one of my assistant coaches, great guy. He's a Whitewater grad, so I would harass him about that. But one of the best human beings I've ever met. But he would always tell the boys before the game, control the things you can control. Yeah. So you go in playing a sport, what can you control? You can control your focus. You can control your energy. Your passion. You can control what's going on up here. That would be the advice I would give anybody, whether it be playing wheelchair basketball or any sport or coaching, because you have to stay focused and you got to keep that energy at a high level all the time.
Yes,
I agree with that.
I agree with that a lot.
100%. That goes to show like how our season is, like trying to control the stuff that we can control to get to that championship level.
I feel like we should we there. I feel like we could keep putting the more work we can. We could be at the top.
It's a good group of guys. I mean, listen, I you know, was one of the main reasons I struggled to leave, because I saw what I saw in that Cooney game up in Minnesota at Nationals, and I knew what we were bringing in with JP and you know, Ryan, Lucas. I mean, I looked at that recruiting class, knowing where you guys had developed into, and it's, you know, I said, oof, this is going to be hard to walk away from, because I knew we were in the right direction, you know, and I was already looking at the other teams saying, these are teams I feel like we can beat.
Yeah.
You know, next year that's coming, but you guys got to do that without me.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'll always be there, but you know, you got to do it without me.
Got you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your
you,
time,
Coach.
Coach Glatch. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on here and answer a couple questions, tell us about your career and everything, give some good advice. So we appreciate you for being on here.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for tuning in to the All-in-One podcast. We apologize we don't got no camera on today. We're still transitioning between studios, but hopefully soon we'll be able to get right back to our videos so you can see our beautiful faces. You feel me?
Yes.
So y'all have a great night. Stay blessed, and we out.
Peace.
Bye bye.